Hola.
Hola.
Does everybody have supplies already picked up? Yeah, if you don't.
I do.
Yeah, okay.
Yoli?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, just quick question. I must have missed it from the last time, our last meeting, our last class, but I brought some negatives to Kinko's because I don't have a printer. And I was gonna copy to print it. I was like, wait a minute, I don't think this is right. So I think the actual negatives is what we will use on the cyanotype paper. Okay, gotcha. I was like, this doesn't make sense. Okay, because I was looking. Now, if it's like, let me grab it really quick. If it's like an old newspaper clipping, this I can copy.
Yes. So yeah,
Okay.
like that I would copy, like take that to Kinko's, have them copy, and then get a nice, contrast. You want to be able to see black. And that's what you're going to essentially be lifting is the black parts of that picture. So whenever you photocopy it, whatever ends up the darkest will have the highest chances of being really retained. And so just be aware because you're going to be like removing the paper from the image. So when you photocopy that, if they don't give you a good, like if you look at the picture that you showed me, it is a newspaper clipping and a lot of it, yeah, it's kind of all gray, right?
Yeah,
kind
of, so black and white.
Yeah, so if I was you, when I take that in, I would say, can you bump up the contrast? Meaning, I want you to separate out and let me see more colors of gray. Because right now it's older and that happens with some things as they get older, the colors shift. So what I would just is bump up the contrast. So that way the things that are black, they look black instead of gray. And then when you take that picture, it'll be a nice like range of tones instead of just, but yeah, that would work.
Oh, okay. So preferably, because I usually, when I go into Kinko's, I do it myself, but I should, if I try it myself and it's not like, as you said, more contrast, I should ask them to do it for me, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could play around with it and see, knowing that you're going to pull this off. So you want it to be nice and a wide range of tones. Right now your blacks look dark gray. So whatever you can do to make the blacks actually look black and the whites to look white. And just play around with it. And then if you get like to a point where you think you don't know what you're doing, they have been there for however long and they probably know the settings. But you playing around with it too, you might end up seeing some neat effect. I mean, I don't know, because there's a lot of things you can play around with, right? So you play around with it, see how you like it. And then, I mean, the prints are really cheap. You can make a couple of them.
So this is not going to work. This is not going to work with colored photos.
It will work. So say
you had work too.
If you had a newspaper clipping and it was color, same thing. A magazine that's color will work. And then
what about a picture? A picture itself?
Yeah,
an actual picture.
Not a traditional picture. So this was a picture I took on my phone of my dog, and then I just printed it at home on my printer at home on just plain white paper. And so it's a color picture. And then as you can see, this is what it's going to end up looking like if you do this one. Some people are doing magazines. Magazines have really good resolution. So if you do the magazine, someone mentioned National Geographic last time, those will probably look cool because they're really detailed, really crisp.
So, yeah.
But if you have negatives, now what we're going to do with negatives is we're going to lay the negatives on our paper and then it'll print a blue copy of that picture. So if you have a negative today and you want to experiment, everybody has sun. Does anybody not have sun where they're at today? Okay, yeah, because I know it's been storming. So if you don't have sun, then just keep an eye out for sun. But today, since we do have sun, I am going to go through and do the whole process. Yeah.
I made this morning.
Yoli.
cool.
So it was a heart stone and then a dried amaryllis flower. And what I like about it is notice how the heart was three-dimensional. So look at how it casted a shadow. I like that.
That's beautiful.
And I really want to go back into the flower with some watercolors.
Cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is a perfect example. Bless you. Thank you for sharing. That's a perfect
Yeah.
example of giving yourself space to work, adding a picture. You know, for me, like I chose to do a heart for me and my dog, and it was a leaf, but that rock that is in the shape of a heart, that's like the perfect base for you if you want to lift a picture and put a picture into that.
Yeah.
Are we supposed to?
Nice.
Well, Sally is supposed to be joining me, but she's just not here yet.
Okay. Yeah, I try to give a few minutes so that way we don't get too far ahead. So like 10 minutes, a couple more minutes. Let's see.
Can I ask a question? This is Maria. So the woman that just showed the image, may I get your name?
Peggy.
Oh, hi, Peggy. How did you use a stone? I thought we had to use flat things.
Well, I wanted a heart shape and I collect heart rocks. So it was just,
Oh, wow.
so I actually put it down and I actually have a clipboard. And so I put the piece of paper on the clipboard and I have a glass thing. So I actually, it did, but the line from the glass did not. So I just put the glass up to, you know, where the stone was, but it did not show a line. So that's.
Oh, I see. So you put the stone on top of the paper itself?
Yes.
I imagine you could
When
probably
I put the glass on, I just put it below the stone.
Got it. But I imagine you could probably just put it on top of the glass, right?
If you did
I didn't know what the shadows would do. You know,
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah, so I think depending on the, like where the light is and the angle the sun's coming, like if you wait till really late in the day when the sun is really low and the angle is kind of like this.
And this is the flower that I use. And see this part here, well, it just fell off. But if you look, there's a little bit more transparency in that. So there's a little bit more a little bit more gradation. This was 18 minutes.
Okay, yeah, so what I would do then, the way that this works, if I was in your position, I would double my time. So if you had 18 minutes, double your time and see what the exposure on that flower looks like so you can bring out some more of those details.
Oh, okay, okay.
So if you also use something that is not transparent like a rock and you place it on top of something that is transparent like glass, depending on how thick that is, you might get sunlight to go underneath the glass like it's floating. So you can play
might be good
with it. Yeah, you can lay things.
I think Sally's calling me. Excuse me.
Does anybody else have any other creations that they'd like to share?
Well, I just have another question. So I didn't get everything that you said, Yolanda.
I'm sharing.
Okay.
So you could do something that's opaque or heavier like a rock and just, but if you said something about the time of day, like if it's later and the sun is lower.
Yes, so if I have something that is big like that rock, she had something that's very thick, it's going to cast a shadow. So on her picture, if you look, she has a really nice shape of a heart, and then it's kind of ghosty down here because the sun was, and it was kind of like a shadow. It was dodging, it was blocking the sunlight when the shadow was there, and then the shadow moved, and so then it kind of started developing it. So you get like these ghosty kind of effects if you have something that casts a shadow, because having something that casts a shadow, like for instance, if I place this on my paper flat and you see this outline, you might recognize this as a battery, but if it's also casting a shadow on the side, then you might see some of the details over here. So it would be like this weird kind of two-dimensional effect.
Okay.
is where, you know, experiment. I gave you transparent things because it's very easy to find stuff you can't get light to shine through. But it's hard to find flowers right now. Yeah, go ahead, Peggy. You have a question? No, you're muted. I'm sorry, you're still muted, Peggy.
Sally needs to have the link to get in. She's going to stay at her house today.
I can take care of that, Yolanda, for you.
Can you send her the link to get on?
Okay.
You find her?
Yeah, I have it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you for telling me. Thank you guys for being patient too. Okay, so I want you guys to experiment. If there's something that you think looks neat, you want to try it, I mean, just try it and see what happens, and then share with us and see how it goes. I give you transparent things so you could practice with things that I know will give you really beautiful details and stuff. So thank you for sharing, Peggy, your adventure with a rock. But today we're going to go and do this together. So does anybody else have any questions related to the process or anything before I get started? Let me make sure I see everybody. Okay. So I have an assistant. Brittany Cyrus is my assistant. They're going to share their screen while I do this because I don't have 5 hands. So.
Hi, Brittany.
Hi, good morning.
Okay. So you just pick the best angle, as long as it's no, I mean, they're recording, it's fine. Okay. So this is what we have in our package, a black package of paper, and it's coated. Yours will be coated on both sides. This one that I have is only coated on one, as you can see. Again, make sure you keep this out of the direct sunlight when you open it up, and close it when you're done. I have a clear plastic that I'm going to set on top. This will prevent everything from flying away. You don't need it. And you can get creative. Sticking a rock on top of this will definitely keep it from flying away. And so these are some of the things that I have pressed. And some of you might have something similar. I'm going to choose a specimen that has see-through things, as well as some not see-through parts. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this is something that I'm going to choose, and I'm just going to lay it on my piece of paper. So there's 2. Okay. And one thing to take into consideration when you do this is the exposure. Petals are going to be thin. You're going to see details. Okay, thank you. Let's see. Okay. So taking some time and just organizing. Everybody can hear me and I'm not reverberating anymore?
Correct.
A
Sounds
little
good.
bit, but I can, it's fine.
So sorry about that, but I'm choosing something that has thick pieces and thin pieces. And this is going to give me a good idea of how much time I'm going to need for a stem versus a flower. Some of these pieces are attached to stems. You're more than welcome to trim them down so that way they fit or they work for you. You can pull things off. It's up to you how you want to use them. This looks kind of neat now that I pulled that off, so I'm going to take that whole thing. And because they're see-through,
you know, these details I'm hoping will show through here. So I'm going to go with this detail, this design for now. And just take note of how these things are placed, because what the next step is going to be when I'm outside, I need to figure out, am I going to take, so Peggy used 18 minutes, and when Peggy used 18 minutes, she got that first example that she showed us. So since Peggy experimented with 18 minutes this morning, I'm going to start off with, let's see, 9 minutes. So I'm going to do 9-minute intervals. And what's going to happen is I'm going to choose, do I want to move my blocking piece of paper or cardboard across this way? Or do I want to move it this way? Knowing that in each segment, there's going to be certain types of the flower or stem exposed for a certain amount of time. And the idea with this is, instead of me using one whole page at 18 minutes, I'm going to do 9 minutes plus 9. So now this will be 18 and this will be 9. And then move it over one more time. Now this will be 9, this will be 18, and then 9 times 3, 27. So as you do that, you have a segmented exposure on one piece of paper with your design. And then you can choose, okay, well, I know at, let's say, 27 minutes, my detail in this is going to get exposed, but maybe this is still underexposed and still really, really white. We won't know. That's what this test print is going to be. So that's what we're going to do now. So I'm going to choose to go this way, because in every segment, there is something that has like a good botanical in it that can kind of give me information on how many minutes I need to get a good exposure. If I went this way, right here, that's not really a lot of detail. That's not going to really tell me if 9 minutes or 27 minutes or whatever it ends up being really does anything, because there's not anything being really exposed. So just take a moment and decide which way you're going to go. Pick something thick like cardboard that light won't shine through, and we're going to go outside.
Yolanda?
Yeah, let's go ahead and go outside. So when we go outside, we want to make sure that we pick a place where there's no shade. And since Peggy already experimented and we know at least 18 minutes is going to be a good exposure, we want to make sure that wherever we're going to have sunlight, it needs to be for at least 20 minutes. So you kind of like show what I'm saying. So when I come out here and I see I have a lot of trees in the background, and it's all shady right here in my front yard. It's all shady. So this isn't really a good spot, but coming over here. Now, right now, there's no traffic in my cul-de-sac, so I feel safe crossing the street and going over here. So just be careful of where you're at, and you don't want anyone messing with this, because again, it needs to stay in a place for at least 20 minutes. So I'm just going to place mine over here in the sun and set a timer for 9 minutes. You want to make sure that when you place this, you're aware of shadows. I'm staying on this side of the sun because my shadow is casting behind me, and I don't want anything to interfere with my exposure. And likewise, when people are doing this in groups or watching, just make sure you say, okay, we're gonna stay away from the light that's hitting your exposure. And this is what we're at. Okay, I'm gonna leave this here and go back inside, and then I can answer your question. Okay, would you mind putting your car where I'm standing so no one? Yeah, thank you. Oh, gosh. Okay. I'm sorry if you guys get motion sickness. Thank you, Brittany. Okay. Let's see. Stop video. Oh, I'm just gonna go back on my computer.
Question, Yoli. I have a quick question. Can I ask? So I guess I'm
Yes,
looking at the,
You can hear me, right?
yeah, I'm looking at the sun like this time of the year, so it's not as hot, but I guess we check to see how long, the exposure will be, but I imagine during the summertime, it's gonna be quicker if the sun's really hot.
So this process doesn't have anything to do with the temperature.
Okay, so the length of exposure.
Yeah, so it's more like, is it cloudy? Is it overcast? Is it bright sun? Is it direct sun? That's more what we're worried about. The heat doesn't have anything to do with this except like your exposure to heat stroke, I guess. So just be careful.
Yeah, okay.
Because you might have to, for me, I'm coming inside and I feel safe leaving my thing outside. But if it's like 100 degrees and you have to sit out there with it for 20 minutes, I might.
Oh, okay. So it doesn't matter, huh? Oh, I am just so excited because I'm thinking, oh, this could be my project with my granddaughter.
Yeah.
She's 9 years old. I'm like, oh, that'll be awesome. This is nice.
Yeah, I hope so. There's enough stuff for for you guys both to get started, and the paper is like the first thing you might run out, but you will have enough to do more transfers too. So that little bottle that I gave you of acrylic, that should last you for maybe at least 12 transfers because it's so small. Unless you're doing like a big full 8x10, it might only do 2 8x10s, but it's a lot of stuff to transfer and play around with.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
This is Sally. I came in late. Sorry. I did one too. Can you see it?
Oh yeah, go ahead and.
Oh, nice.
So I have a question about it. So this side, I did it in quarters. So this side was 10 minutes, like 20, 30, and 40.
Can you bring it a little closer so we could see your?
Sure.
Can you highlight her frame?
Let's see.
Nice.
Spotlight there.
Oh, cool, Sally. That looks good.
So my
Very
question
nice.
is like over here where it was, the stuff was thinner over on this side, but the time was shorter. And this stuff over here was really thick.
On the right-hand side?
Over here. It's my left over here. Can you see my finger? Over. Yeah. So if I had exposed this for longer, would it show more?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is where my initial advice was to like sketch your design or at least take a picture so you know how to rearrange this. So what I would do is rearrange this exact like how you did and then take it back out there. And the one that has a good detail that you like, whatever time that was, that would be where I start.
Okay.
And expose the whole design again for that time and see what happens.
Okay. And then my other question was, I did one of those things with the Mod Podge or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
Acrylic. And so how do you use this then when you're going to expose?
So that's a piece of paper on the back, correct?
No, I peeled off all I could. Do I peel more off?
Peel off as much as you can. It should become like almost transparent.
Okay.
If you peeled off as much as you can, now what you do is think about it like a sheet, a clear picture. You get the acrylic that you use to make that coating and then just use it like glue. Pick the place you want to put the picture you want to put put some of that as glue down on your paper and then stick that right back on top and let it dry, and then it'll glue.
And then do you peel that off or does that stay?
That would stay. So like say in the parts of your first picture that are totally white, you don't have any detail. Yeah, like maybe the flower. I would pick a really interesting part of the picture that you put acrylic on, and maybe cut out like that shape if you want, and like paste that there, and maybe use that flower shape as like a collage pieces of that picture. So cut out interesting pieces and shape them on there and put them on there. So that would be something that I would consider doing. You could also wait and add watercolor details to those white places. What the transfer is just the option for people who might not feel comfortable drawing and painting with watercolor to add details to those white places, because we're going to inevitably have them.
You do it before you expose it or after?
After, like right now.
Okay, because this has been done now. I can't do any more to this, right?
The thing that you could do is you could recolor it with watercolor, which will be next class. Or you can transfer the picture, a picture, to the parts that are white.
Okay.
And fill it in. Or you can leave it just like that and it's done. Or you can read the back of your package of paper and it tells you how to tint it yellow and how to tint it brown. And it's tea. You can think of that as paint, like bleach. You want to do swipes of yellow or swipes of brown, you can take that and kind of bleach your print. And that could be a option for you. If you want to leave it like that, then yeah, that's a complete cyanotype.
And will it continue to change as it dries?
After 24 hours, that's as blue as it's going to get.
Because I did it this morning, just.
Oh yeah, so look at it. If that's how blue it is right now,
yeah,
it might get really blue.
Okay. I just wondered if anything more would show up in the white, but probably not, huh?
Give it a day. I'm surprised.
Okay.
When things show up.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. It looks great. Good job.
Good job, Sally.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Looks good, Sal.
So does anybody have any questions or anything else that they'd like to share?
Well, one more question, Yoli. I think I don't know if I missed it, but I understand the part of the cyanotype paper and putting the botanicals or whatever materials we want to use. But we're going to go over, you'll go over with us using the acrylic paper, right? And okay, because I don't remember anything about that. So thank you.
Yeah, we're gonna do this in steps. Once you have a couple of prints, Peggy and Sally both have a print now. And as you guys get prints, I wanted to wait to go over those. You had something to actually do with me. Otherwise you won't get like I'm doing this with you and we're working together so we know what we're doing. It's more like I'm gonna do it and you just watch me and then you go do it on your own. And I didn't feel that as engaging. So this is planned for you guys to have time to do the activity and then come to like class with the supply that you created. So I will go over like the watercolors, the acrylic, all those steps. But if you feel confident in going and taking it and going with it, then you're more than welcome to, but you don't have to.
Thank you.
Yeah, any other questions?
Yolanda, now the back side of our paper, since that wasn't exposed to the sunlight because it was against the substrate, I could use the back and try to print something on that, right?
Let me see the back of your paper if you don't mind.
Can you see me?
Yeah. Hold it up a little. So my question is, when you rinsed this in water, did you rinse the back?
I put it in a pan of water, yes.
Yeah, so that is what is called the fixing process.
Okay, so I won't. Okay, so I should get another one then. Okay.
Yeah, try. I've always wanted to. It's just kind of hard because it's a picture on one side.
It's hard when you're rinsing. Even if you rinse it underwater, it's hard not to get it on the back. So I don't know how you would do that.
Yeah.
But that's all right. I cut the paper in, as you can see, in smaller pieces so I could experiment with it.
You didn't put a timer down, did you? Oh, that's right. Okay. Well, I didn't get to actually put a timer down because I was talking. So
We were asking you too many questions.
okay. This process, you're not going to overexpose it. I mean, it takes a long time. So if you forget for 10 minutes, you probably won't ruin it. So don't worry too much about it. But the thing is, if you forget how much time something was exposed for and it looks great, now you still have to go back and experiment and try to figure out what time that was. So when you do this, take note. I write on the back, especially when you can clearly see the segments of different exposure. I write the time and the quality of light, sunny, overcast, because it will work on an overcast day. It just takes a little longer. And I keep that as a record. So I know to go back and say, oh, I know I only need to expose for 3 minutes on a sunny day. And it doesn't take that long. Okay, so I'm gonna go back outside and we're gonna just move my cardboard over.
Oh, Yolanda?
Yeah.
What do you write on the wet paper?
Oh,
no, it's dry. It's dry.
Yeah.
You just write with pencil?
Yeah, or pen. I mean, it doesn't really matter, just as long as you can read it and refer to it.
I forgot it would be dry when you wrote on it. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Some people have written on it when it's wet, but just wait for it to dry and then you can write on it. Okay, for the side. The green, so the green. Oh, okay. I was reading the chat. So I'm just gonna move my paper over and hopefully have a timer set for 9 minutes before I go out there. Okay. Yeah, okay.
I'm reading in chat. Yes, you can still pick up your package next week. It's will be open from 5 to 8:30 at Casa. From Tuesday, I'm putting it in chat. From Tuesday to Thursday, and then next Saturday from 10 to 2 p.m. And right now I'm just making my design, so I guess we can just kind of practice with that, and then I'm putting out designs as we go, and I'm doing what she's telling us to do.
So as you can see, this first place right here has been exposed. And as it exposes, it will no longer be blue. So if you're looking at this whole thing, you can also kind of tell the bare minimum of exposure based on when this turns like white. Sometimes you'll get really thin flowers that you really need only a minimum amount of time. And this down here now is perfectly exposed and will be the darkest blue. So that's one thing to take note of. When it's white or pale yellow, it's finished. So I am hoping to get a very distinct line right down there as we continue this process. But sometimes a certain amount of light will have an effect of like completely overexposing. Peggy's experience with the glass, she said there's no line. I can't see any line of where the glass was. And that's because she was able to like completely expose over that detail. So that's something to consider. Sometimes you can overexpose knowing, oh, that line's gonna disappear later on. Okay, so I got a 9-minute timer set, and then I'll do one more 9 minutes, and that whole test print will be done.
And Yolanda, there was a question from Jack. He wanted to know if the paper is green, does it still end up being blue?
So the paper is green because of the chemical. It's the salt that is coating the paper. So before you expose it to sun and rinse it off, it's this like greenish color. So that's just, it's treated. When you rinse it in the water, that will all rinse away and it'll rinse away like a yellow color. When you're done rinsing your print, you'll know because the water will run clear, it won't be yellow. Does that answer the question?
Yes.
If you see your paper's green, just don't leave it out in the sun. It's not, it's still sensitive to sunlight.
And another question, Yoli? This is Cynthia.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, just to reiterate, just want to make sure I heard you right. When it's, the paper turns white, so that's like the maximum exposure. So you know that that's the max it will go, right? White or light yellow. Okay. Oops. Okay.
Yolanda, you're good.
I have a timer set. Thank you for reminding me. So if I have a bunch of flowers, like say I have a bunch of flowers like this, they're very thin and I'm overexposing. I keep on overexposing and I'm not getting as many details. If that's the case at any time in your experimentation with this, the reason why I mentioned the paper turning white outside is because in that case, you just want the paper to be exposed just enough to give you blues. So if you come across something that the details aren't ever showing up because it's like fading through, meaning right here, I'm getting some blues coming through. And in this part, I'm not yet. If I overexpose and try to get more details in here, I might lose this and the blues will start coming through. So if you get something that's really thin and that happens, just keep it out in the sun. And once you notice it's no longer blue, that's the minimum exposure to get a blueprint. So if you have something really thin, that's—
How many minutes did you do the part that it's showing through the flower? Do you know that part? You don't remember?
So long ago, and I didn't write it on the back. So that's why I really recommend that you write it on the back.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, after a couple of tries of doing this, you'll notice, oh, when it's sunny, this flower is good in 3 minutes. You know, eventually, because you have, you know, you're playing around with these things and you'll notice. So, so once the paper is exposed, you have two options. You can put it in a tray and agitate it back and forth to save water, to get it to kind of rinse and clean off, and then rinse a little bit, or you can turn the water on and just let the water run over it. I prefer using a tray so you can sit there and kind of get as much off at once and then rinse it. So that is how I would fix my paper. Are there any other questions?
I have a question. Not exactly about this process, but this the acrylic process. How do I scrub more off of it?
Just put it in the water. Put it in some water, like a little dish. Let it get wet, and then just rub the paper off again.
Keep rubbing it? Okay.
Yeah.
I was afraid to mess with it too much.
No, don't worry. If you put a couple of coats on the picture,
I did.
it's very resilient. Yeah, and you'll feel, okay, this feels like paper. This feels like paper. And then as you're rubbing, you'll be like, okay, now this doesn't feel like paper anymore. It feels kind of like plasticky. So you want to rub till you no longer feel paper, the texture of paper.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I'm not sure, sorry, lo siento mucho. I'm not sure I followed that, what you just explained to Sally. So she was trying to put a photo into the acrylic paper?
So so just imagine this is my newspaper clipping or whatever picture I'm going to lift. Is that little bottle of acrylic, I'm gonna paint it. So Sally painted it on her picture, let it dry, paint another layer, let it dry. I did mine on the one that I'm showing you with my dog. I did that 3 times and it was really stiff.
Okay, oh,
So
okay.
if you want something a little bit more stretchy, only do like 1 coat and then you can kind of stretch it and pull it and get some really interesting details by manipulating the picture. But mine was really stiff. And so I couldn't even bend it. And so it's exactly the same size.
Okay.
But what Sally did was after she coated it, she took this and like put it in water, and the water allows you to like rub off the paper. And then she did that. And now she has a little plastic piece of acrylic with the image like embedded in it.
Oh, is that right? Wow, okay. Okay,
So
so
she-
you're rubbing it from the other side, obviously, not the,
Yeah.
the back of the acrylic. So it
Yeah.
transfers to the acrylic liquid. Amazing. Okay, this is
Yeah.
so new to me. Okay.
Yeah. So Sally was wondering, I didn't want to destroy it because, you're rubbing it,
Yeah.
and then you don't want to ruin it because it is kind of seems really flimsy when it's wet.
Mm-hmm.
Brittany, would you mind going and removing that paper from my picture outside? Just take the whole thing off of it for me. It's done. This is the last 9 minutes. Thank you so much. Sorry. So,
I put 3 coats on it, but it still seems thin to me anyway.
well, so if you did 3 coats, then and it still seems thin to you, but can you stretch it? I'm sorry. So I had lost my train of thought when that alarm.
Mm-hmm.
So Sally was rubbing it, but I don't know if Sally rubbed off all the paper.
Yeah,
So
I don't
Sally
think
was
it did.
asking was, can I remove the paper? Because in the end, it'll be like a negative, but a positive image because you can see through it. And I just told her, take that paper that you have, which is like mostly plastic, and she rubbed it off. Take it and soak it back in water and put it in a little dish and let it get wet again. And then the paper that's on the back of it will absorb that water, and then you can rub the rest of it off, and then it'll be really see-through.
Okay.
Yeah. And then when
I'm sorry. And if this were a newspaper, like what I showed you, I'm gonna copy this first, right? Yes, because my thought is like, is it gonna destroy whatever we're trying to transfer? So of course, copy it first on paper. Okay.
yeah, don't
Gotcha.
put a clip on that because that will destroy it.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
So
Thank you.
yeah, if you can kind of see, so this is transparent. You can see my dog's ears are
Yeah.
over blue, but you can still see through like, yeah, so that's what ends up happening. You remove all of
Okay.
the paper. The paper was originally white, and then because I removed all the paper, you can see the cyanotype through the ink that's now on the paint.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions?
There's some questions in chat, I think, from Jack and Maria.
I don't know if I have a clear piece of plastic that is big enough. Can we just, so can we use picked flowers or leaves? You can definitely use ones that you just picked. The thing to take notice of, I don't have an example of it with me, but if you pick something, it has water in it, and water is the process that starts fixing your picture so it's no longer light sensitive. So I've done things where I've gotten like a stem of a flower, right? It's a beautiful flower and I want to put it on a cyanotype, and I put it on my cyanotype, but liquid is coming out of the tip, and as it comes out of the tip, it's simultaneously getting exposed by the sun, but also getting fixed because the liquid that's mostly water is starting the chemical process you usually do inside when you're done. And I've gotten some really interesting kind of like wavy effects out of the bottom of things that were recently picked. So if you do decide to pick something and then immediately use it, be aware of that. It can be really cool, and it can also ruin your picture because you didn't intend for that to happen. So usually what I do is I press them, because once you make this print, if it is wet, like a freshly picked flower, it kind of gets destroyed and you can't reuse it. So by pressing it and drying it, after I'm done, I can take it off, put it aside, and then make a new picture. So you finished your cyanotype? Are you capable of showing us?
Sure.
Cool. And then did you get?
You see this?
Ooh. Wow, that's beautiful. It looks like birds flying on the right-hand side to me. It looks like a bunch of
Yeah,
birds.
it has a lot of flight to it.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Is that from Jack?
It's from Soha.
Oh, Soha, that looks really good.
Yeah,
Nice.
good job.
How many minutes did you expose?
I honestly only did it for 15 minutes.
15?
Yeah.
Okay. So wait for 24 hours and then, start my video. Huh. All right. That's really beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. What I would do, if you want to try to get some of those details in the flowers, in 24 hours, all of the details will come through, and then you can see where you need to increase your exposure if you do need to, because you might not. But if you do, if you want something to be twice as dark, you double the time. So that's kind of the mentality. When you go into this, if you see something that's barely light blue, think, well, if I want that twice as dark, I need to double my time. And this is how it can go, like 40 minutes sometimes. So that's really beautiful. Newly picked leaves. Yeah, leaves are a good one too. They have, you can use flowers, leaves. The only thing with leaves is the leaves are thick. So leaves take even longer than flowers. So as you go through this and you make your contact print and you move and you figure out good exposure times, you will see for a leaf, you might have to leave it out for an hour and a half. You might have to leave it out for 2 hours to get details in a leaf. But if you can leave a picture out there for 2 hours and no shade has come in and the sun's consistent for 2 hours in that spot, then you can get some really beautiful details in the leaves. So yeah, that's.
But then you might need to block off other areas, right?
Yeah, so if you have something that's like a leaf and then a flower, what I would do is like cut a piece of cardboard, completely block the flower after I've already figured out, oh, my exposure for that's perfect at 5 minutes. And then expose for the really, really thick thing, leaving like a cardboard on top. And then in the last like 3 minutes, take that off. And then that will now get exposed at the right time. That's called dodging or burning. They happen at the same time. When you dodge something, you're burning, you're exposing more in the other areas. So yes. So yeah, experiment. Any other questions? So you can delay the fixing process, store in paper. Yes, so you don't have to immediately fix it. Right now, I can take my picture when it's done, and I can put it back in the black plastic bag and leave it in there. And then come back to it whenever I want, or never come back to it. But it will still be sensitive to sunlight until I put it in water. So if you want to make a couple of prints and then like rinse them all at once, that's something you can do. Just make sure you're aware of the paper you already use, because your paper is coated on front and back. If anybody is able to get a front and back print, I would be really excited to see and learn how you did it, because it's really hard and I have not been able to do one personally. So yeah.
What if you've used a sponge to wash one side?
Maybe, yeah, like a sponge just to wet the one side. Yeah, maybe. I haven't experimented a lot with it, but I have not also been able to get a double-sided print.
Did you like expose one side and then turn it over and put a piece of glass on it? And then for the other side, and then put your and
That's
turn it like
true.
that.
You could expose one side and then expose the other side and then wash both sides.
That's true. I, for some reason, never thought of that.
And you
Yeah.
can use the black plastic as what you turn it over on the black plastic, and then you put your glass on top of that, or not. No, I don't think you need.
Yeah, I mean,
But the sun doesn't really get the backside if it's.
Right, but I was just thinking for a good surface.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
the
we
paper that I'm
scratch.
showing you guys on, this is a different brand, but I'm just holding it up and you can see how thin it is because this is the back and that's the front. So for me, if I was trying to do it with this particular brand, it wouldn't work.
But
because-
this is pretty thick.
Yeah, I got you guys really thick stuff.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and that's the end of the timer. So,
Jack has a question, Yoli.
yeah, so would it be okay if my design looked like this? Are they too close together? Let me. Oh, no. That's beautiful, Jack. Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Just take into consideration.
Jack,
a
could we
little
see
bit
that
what
one more
happened.
time, please?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Could we see the picture one more time? I
Oh, yeah.
didn't see it.
Jack, do you mind
Okay.
sharing? with them? Yeah, so the only thing that I would recommend is the 3 things in the middle that are going diagonal, the leaves, those are going to be really thick. And the 2 petals in the corner, those are going to be thinner. So your exposure to get beautiful details in the leaves are going to take, I would start off maybe 40 minutes, maybe even an hour, and then uncover your flowers and then go from there, because the leaves are going to take a lot longer to get details in versus the petals. Those should not take as long. You can, again, try practicing with the exposure times, how I showed you, but I know for the leaves, it's gonna take a long time. I would start off with a high number. But that looks gorgeous. Yeah, good job, Jack.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're kind of coming to the end of our time. I'm gonna go grab our picture and rinse it. Does anybody else have any questions or comments?
I have
This
a
is-
question. When you
Yeah.
were talking about covering up the leaves, I mean, the light part, how do you do that? Like, doesn't that change the background color if you don't expose it for the same amount of time, or?
He'll probably overexpose the lines, but yeah, if you
Overexpose the lines.
don't, so what I would do is I get like a cardboard. I have a lot of like really thin pieces of cardboard that just come like on the back of like writing pads, and then I'm almost done with them. So I have like this cardboard. So I would like cut a little decal, like a stencil, so cut the shape out
Oh, yeah, cut the shape.
on top.
Oh,
Get it as close as you can, because again, you might end up with a line, and unless you want that. So try to get it as close as to the shape that you're trying to block out, and then lay it on top. And if it's windy, make sure you put something like a little rock on top of it so that little blocker stays where it needs to stay for the time. And then when you're ready, you take the little rock and this little cardboard off your paper and then expose that flower petal for, maybe 10 minutes. This is assuming Jack's done a few tests and got a good idea of what exposure time he wants for the flowers. And just based on how I know the leaves to be, I'm telling Jack to go for 40 minutes. So he's not wasting like, here's 5 minutes and then 10 minutes, and I'm not seeing a difference. So that's why I told Jack, if you're gonna do the leaves, try just, go for 40 minutes and see what you get, because that might not be enough, depending on how thick it is. And he might not want any details, but he might want some. And if he has 2 hours, that might be a good exposure for some of the thicker leaves.
and then what would be the exposure on the lighter leaves?
I don't remember.
Like, would it be half, or would you take the cardboard off like 10 minutes before you're done?
So if I was in Jack's position, what I would do is I would take those flowers, because I don't know, and I would make a contact print just of those petals and figure out what exposure they look best in.
Right, okay.
And know that already,
Okay.
and then go into the next step of the leaves that are thicker, starting at like half an hour. And
Okay.
then the next phase will be another half an hour. And then the next phase would be another half an hour. So the whole range of time would be an hour and a half. And then Jack would be able to see, okay, between an hour and a half, where is the exposure the best for the leaves? Already having done this for the flowers and knowing the time for them.
And then put it all together.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yolanda, so on this one, because this was like 10 minutes, 20, 30, 40, but this was definitely the densest, but it has the most detail. So if I had left like the flowers here, because I know those are thin, longer, I would have seen more detail, correct?
Correct, which is why when I was showing you how I laid out my, I'm sorry, hold on one second. Brittany, will you go grab my picture? So my times are going to be totally off.
I
They're
want
not-
to see what, yeah, I want to see what yours looks like.
But then these leaves would take a lot longer, right? Because they're
Right.
so dense. Okay.
Yeah. So let's envision this is me looking at my paper and I just have my flowers on it and I haven't exposed it yet. This is why it's important to pick, do I want to go this way? Oh, sorry. Or do I want to go this way? Because if I place these things in a certain way, every single time I move it, I should have something of the like kind of the same thickness. So that way I get a good idea on, does that time work for something about that thick? So the way you did it is you kind of went across each specimen. I would have chopped it like this. So that way the specimen is in each exposure.
I see.
That way I get to see
Uh-huh.
what it does. But given what you have there, it's going to kind of be a combination, I think, of depending on the light that you had, like the last two. The flowers might start getting overexposed at 40 minutes, but the thicker things will be really pretty, start showing things. So that's where that dodging, burning, placing my design in a specific order so I can actually maybe dodge it. So
Do you ever like let the paper expose and then put something on top of it, like a leaf? And does that give you anything?
I've not tried that, but really this process takes so long that not putting anything on there and letting the sun hit it might make it harder for details to show up after you put something there. But you try it. I mean, try it and then let's talk about it and see what it looks like. If you do try it.
Okay.
So this is what it kind of looks like. Sometimes you can see the image like this right here looks kind of already 3D.
Yeah, that looks good. You can see through those leaves too.
Oh yeah, you can. Cool. Yeah, so right here, we're getting some transparency. And maybe here. Definitely over here. Now, when we rinse it, it might go away. But remember, in 24 hours, all the details that you were able to expose will be there. So I guess grandma probably won't like that if I use her pan. I just used it to expose a picture, no problem.
Quick question, Yolanda. For the glass, I know you did mention we can use from picture frames. Other than that, what recommendation do you have? Because I still need to get that.
Anything that's clear that will hold your stuff down. So if you don't have like a picture frame, you could take the front off of. Maybe like a report cover if you have someone who has like transparencies front for a report cover, or I mean,
so it can be plastic.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's just
okay.
You want the light to go through it.
Okay, so plastic's fine. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
The
Thank
idea
you.
is this is heavy enough where if a gust of wind comes, it doesn't.
Exactly. There's weight on it. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. So this is where we got.
Yeah. Pyrex.
If you take if you use glass and you want to be more safe with the edges, you can take like duct tape and just go around the edges of it so that when you're handling it, it's not going to be too sharp for you. I used to do that with the kids that I worked with.
Okay.
Oh,
Can
What
you
was that?
Sorry. Okay. Can you guys hear me without any sound issues?
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay.
You're good.
So share your screen. Oh, okay. Can you guys see my picture in the pan?
Nope.
No,
Oh, wait.
okay.
Let me
So
adjust.
as this water goes over your picture, you'll start to see some details come up. And the water for you is going to be very yellow. I think most of the people who have already done this can attest that it was more yellow than what you're seeing in this pan. But that's because this paper is not really coated very well. It's only coated on one side. So just agitate back and forth. I anticipate you would be able to see the yellow very clearly in the water. Is that correct, Peggy and Sally?
I had a small piece of paper.
Okay.
And I didn't see that much yellow, but I knew it was coming out. And when I placed it on paper towels to dry, I noticed there was a little bit of yellow on the paper towel. So I know there was a little residue still on it, but it dried pretty quickly.
Yeah. Okay. So this is what I would do, just kind of sit here and go back and forth, let the water roll over the print until you're able to rinse it clear. So if this is really, really yellow water at this point, I would rinse it again.
And
This is safe to put in the drain of your sink. So you can just pour it down. And if it was still really yellow,
I can't see what your image looks like.
Oh,
there you go. Now I can.
okay. So if the water was still really yellow, I would do another rinse, put some more water in here, and do another agitation. But this paper is fine. So
Oh yeah.
see, there's some detail coming out in these petals now. And these are the same petals that I used in my first picture. This petal that looks kind of like a heart is the one that I used to put my doggy in. And I'm getting a lot more detail in this version because I exposed it for a lot more. So unfortunately for me right now, I can't really tell what side I started at, and I don't remember. So when this dries, there should be a line somewhere between these petals of different exposure, and that'll come out in the next 24 hours. So this is the end up result. So go ahead and just take some time and play around with it. Get as many prints as you feel comfortable playing with. I would say having 3 for the next phase is a good start.
Okay.
That would be what I would shoot for. So if you could get 3 prints that you're wanting to retouch with watercolor and or do transfer process on, that's good.
Okay.
I have a question, Yoli. I was wondering, pardon. There you go. I was just wondering, for the paper, since is it double-sided? Could we do stuff on one side and then stuff on the other side? And then wash it off? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes. So we decided the best way to try to do that would be to expose one side and then flip it over, expose the other side, and then go rinse the whole print.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry, I
so-
missed that.
Yeah, no. And then I'm just gonna use a paper towel method as well. So I'm just putting my print on a paper towel and then kind of just folding it over like a sandwich. And as long as it's not like super dripping wet, then this should be fine. If you notice in this process that there's yellow depositing and it's a lot, maybe go back and rinse it a little bit, because that yellow, you don't want it to be dripping a lot off of your paper. You want to rinse it fully. So that's it.
Right.
Thank you, Yolanda. So next week,
Yolanda, did you send a link this week? Or,
I will.
could you
It's gonna
do
be the
that?
same link every time. So
Okay,
the
yeah, I
same
will
one that
just-
you did last time and this time it's gonna be the same one.
okay, great, thank you.
Easy.
I sent an email out last Saturday, and in that email, the links were to the video that I put together.
Right,
Right.
So that's the thing that I sent out. This link is a reoccurring link for the whole workshop. So it's the
Okay.
same link.
I couldn't find it, so anyway, now I have it, thank you.
Yolanda, I had one question about the image transfer. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I don't understand, like, how do you get the image transfer of the dog onto your cyanotype?
Yeah, so you have your picture. You have coated it with the acrylic. Then it dries. Then you take that and you, in water, rub the paper off. And then after you rub all the paper off, you have just acrylic sheet of a picture.
Okay,
Then the little acrylic that I gave you and use it like glue. Paint it on the back of your picture or onto the cyanotype, and then put your transfer on top. So I just affixed
okay,
picture with some,
you just cut it out.
yeah, I cut it out, and then I just kind of use the acrylic as glue.
Okay, thank you. I got it now, I think.
I think, yeah, we gotta do hands-on, right?
And we're gonna do it together too. So, in the next workshops that are coming up, I'm gonna do this like how I just did one, so you can see me do it.
Okay,
And ask questions and get all of that, get all of those answers that you need, and then go experiment for the week. And then next week, if you still have questions, then we still figure it out. And
okay,
yeah.
great,
you.
thank you.
So much.
Thank you.
Yep, you guys have a good rest of your day.
All
Thank
right,
you,
thank you.
Yolanda.
Yeah,
Muchas
I'll-
gracias. Adios. a
Thank
todos.
you. Bye.